I'd like to present to you teacher extraordinaire, YouTube star, Liz McGee, in the second part of her rendition of Freedom from Fundamentalism.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. And I'm sorry, we did have this little mix-up, I guess. I'm not as prepared then, I guess, as I would like to be, but I will wing it a little bit. So picking up yesterday where we were on talking about the male principle and the female principle. And again, I want to stress a few points. This is ultimately speaking about a binary system of creation, of being, even that's something I use it with, like being, that Yahweh has that allows for creation. Everybody knows it takes a male and a female. It takes to make a third. So it really is a principle of 1 + 1 = 2. That's the mathematical equations that you just can't break. There's no other way to get multiplication. That's the way it has been set up in the cosmos. Now, and I want to stress another point. And this is important to me that we kind of, in my opinion, I'm trying to encourage people to not be afraid. I always say things like that. I believe that Yahweh's ability to keep me is greater than the enemy's ability to deceive me. I believe that the esoteric knowledge that is something to be afraid of. We are children of the light. That as long as you just do Torah and read the writings, I don't have a lot of fear. Because that's what he says, perfect love casts out all fear. I don't have a lot of fear that I'm going to end up in some crazy camp, with all sorts of deceptive doctrines. I really don't believe that. So maybe if believing is receiving, then maybe that's a good place to be. So I want to pick up with this concept again, how the female is used, because it helps to free us from a lot of fundamentalist applications and keep women, basically bottom line, keep women in a box, or, we know historically in a caste system where, she was equated the same thing with a cattle, with an animal, with a beast. This is all because of Hasatan loving to keep the truth, and he can just denegate and subjugate whole pockets of the populations. And this is what goes on in history, and this is what we need to be free from. So that being said, one of the most important principles, again, for me to understand, or that helps people to understand, especially when you get into esoteric understanding. Now, when you say this, I'm talking esoteric there's two kinds of knowledge out there. There's exoteric, which means, and this is what our Bible is telling us, there's exoteric knowledge, which is for everybody. Then there's what's known as esoteric knowledge, and this is wisdom at the highest level. And there's a very good verse in 2nd Esdras. I don't have it at the top of my fingers. I think it's 2nd Esdras 14. There's a whole little chapter there. And 2nd Esdras chapter 12. See, 2nd Esdras is a Deuterocanonical book that is just full of apocryphal and esoteric understanding and code words. But there is this level that is kept for the wise. This is nothing that the rabbis, you don't learn this right off the bat in yeshiva. You don't teach this in kindergarten, because it takes a lot of precept upon precept to begin to even think and see what's there. And it's also because a lot of the thematic stuff, I always tell people esoteric knowledge is a lot of times it's adult themed material that you don't really need or want to teach children. That's why you teach them like the birds and the bees kind of thing, because they don't need to know the details. They're not at a place to understand these details. So that is why a lot of this language is done that way deliberately. And we're the ones that are confused about all this, in my opinion, is especially the last days house of Ephraim. We need to get up to speed, and we need to get back into the house of Judah and receive from them on their terms. My other disclaimer is, yes, we know that by and large, the house of Judah does not accept Yeshua as Messiah ben Joseph. Well, that's a no-brainer. And that is also prophesied. This is what Paul said. He said, look at blindness. There's a certain amount of blindness on them in part. It's all part of a bigger plan until the end of the age. And that's why today we see so many Torah people coming to, so many Jews coming into an understanding of Yeshua ben Joseph, and you see so many Ephraimites coming into an understanding of what the house of Judah has and has kept for us in these last. So this is all part of a bigger plan. But when I go into the literature, it's a no-brainer. They don't see Yeshua as Messiah ben Joseph. So I just see their arguments, which is really an interesting thing, because and I see how they perceive the scriptures, but it's okay. Doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. We are two houses of the same, same mother. We have the same mother. So anyways, all that being said, one of the most important principles when you're dealing with esoteric understanding is to understand there is always an inner manifestation and an outer manifestation. That's why I said there's exoteric knowledge, and then there's esoteric knowledge. And this is an archetype, and it fits in every level all the time, no matter what subject matter you're talking about. And when you see this, you can understand why the prophets talk the way they do, or like Paul talks, he talks about the inward man, and those are always talking about the mechanisms and the programs in us, or the parts of our persona that deal with our soul life, our spiritual and soul life, which you can't see. They're hidden. And that's on purpose, but that doesn't mean that you close a blind eye. There's as much information in our text about those dimensions as there is about the physical, and the historical aspects of the text. So it's couched as an inner or an outer. It's also couched in terms of the visible or the invisible. And a lot of the text, especially in the apocryphal text, they'll say that right out. I have a great quote I've just used from Enoch. In Enoch's series, says, that Yahweh used the visible and the invisible dimensions to make his atom. So we're made up. So these are things that we just need to, just as givens when you're doing all this. But one thing, there's a very enigmatic verse in Isaiah 3:12, and it talks about the prophet is coming against the daughters of Zion. Now, why do they denegate? Again, why are they denegating women, daughters, the female a lot of times? Because it does, on the surface reading, it does seem to denegate the female. But is that really the end of the story, and we walk away and we denegate a whole other half of the species? No, it's because in the archetypal understanding, like I said, Chokmah is the father, and but Bina is the mother. But there is a fallen, and the flip side of this, and I'm not even going to get into anything. We know that there's a whole fallen kingdom. The kingdom of Hasatan, the whole fallen kingdom, operates completely alongside of the kingdom of light. Now, that's another, and this is where it gets exciting to me again, in the physics of that they're discovering today, the whole world of quantum mechanics. There's like a couple of realities going on all at the same time, and they have no way. Science is at an absolute end of its rope right now, because they have no language, no math, no tools in which how to project the outcome at that level. See, that's why we can fly a plane today, because we can take all the math and the formulas and the wind speed and, the gravitate, all these things, and we can put into formulas, and we can absolutely, with certainty, come up with formulas so you know how to take the plane off and you know how to land the plane with absolute certainty. Isn't that a good thing? But as soon as you get out of this, yesterday I talked about the four worlds. As soon as you get out of the first world of physicality, the first world of matter, or what we operate in is the first three dimensions, try to get into a fourth dimension or any higher, we have no tools for projecting with absolute certainty the outcome of a situation. And that's all in the text. And I think that's just really interesting. Other than the fact that we are told with certainty that how it all works out, that's why in a person's life, I mean, like, people's lives are so different. I mean, like, who can ever figure out why this happens to that person and that happens to another person? Why do the righteous suffer? Except the fact that there's two ways. There's the way of light and there's a way of darkness. If you walk the way of darkness, boom, you're cursed. If you walk the way of light, boom, you have a future and a hope. Other than that, there's no more probability with exactness. So, all that being said, in the Daughters of Zion, so I wanted to say the reason why women are a lot of times denigrated, because as an archetype, it is because Eve fell. Eve is the one who originally instituted the fall. And this, I can't even begin to unpack this, what happened in the garden in this. When there is a side of the female element that is literally in captivity, or so close to the clip-off, to the evil influence, to the evil inclination, sometimes they denegate it because it's so easy to just fall. When you're walking in the realm of the feminine, close to physicality, it's so easy to be deceived or to fall. Or the snares are so great. I hope that all made sense. So, in Isaiah, there's another verse in, I think, where it talks about women. Okay, as for my people, a babe is their master, and women rule over them. Oh, my people, they that lead these cause them to err and destroy the way of the path. These leaders, okay, so what does that mean, that a woman rule over them? Because historically we would, like, especially if you're in a good Southern Baptist, say, you're all filled with the spirit of Jezebel because women are ruling over you. Well, that is not at all what the text is saying. Okay. What they're saying is women, and let me try to, and I have this commentary, and I'm not 100% sure. Oh, it's a midrash from Rabbah Shemos. So it's a midrash, and I'm not 100% where I got it from, but let me read this. So, O my people, they that lead thee to cause thee to err and destroy the way of thy paths. These leaders were haughty, who use their ornaments, and I'll explain what ornaments means, for pompous self-aggrandizement, are directed against the kind of Torah scholars who use their knowledge and proficiency as a sort of arrogance in order to rule over others. Haven't we all experienced that, right? These self-seeking scholars cause the corruption of leadership, which in turn brings immorality. The Talmud speaks of leaders who were never a regular Bible student in the Bet Midrash, and therefore know neither Bible, nor Mishnah, nor Gemara, and therefore lack all the qualifications for true leadership. According to rabbinic tradition, verses 18 through 24 enumerate 24 kinds of ornaments with which it was customary to bedrock brides. And these 24 kinds of ornaments in turn correspond to the 24 books of the Bible, which are the ornaments of those Torah sages who are fully familiar with them. So to restate what I was saying, basically when women rule, it's a way of saying, and there's another verse, and I think Paul is saying this to Timothy, you don't let a novice, this is what's so important, you don't let a novice have a position of authority or rulership, especially in what they would consider a Torah school, because these people are not grounded. They're going to lead you into error. This is why, and this is always the rub, where you have truly called saints who have done their homework, the true teacher who, and this is especially in the Jewish concept, and this is something, again, we need to, as Ephraimites coming, we need to really raise the bar. You need to know everything, Talmud, Gemara, the Mishnah, all of the writings. You have to be a Torah sage. That's the safest place to be for those who want to teach. That's why it says teachers will be judged more harshly, because you're dealing with the Holy Word, but because it's you have to know length and breadth and depth and height, which is another way. You got to have a full mastery of all these subjects, because they're so interrelated and so interconnected, and there's so many levels. And this is, again, gets into the word they use of initiated. If you're not, why would you put a high school calculus kid teaching a grad school college level calculus. Nobody in the secular world would do that. They'd be laughed out of the classroom. Nobody would put up with that. Why do we in the church put up with that? That's why people are sitting in these churches week after week, starving to death, basically having a famine of the word, no depth. I talk to so many Christians who say, oh my gosh, I've heard that sermon 25 million times. Well, you have. We need to raise the standard. So that's why I'm saying when women rule over you, what they're saying, they're not talking about the female gender. They're talking about this kind of, this level of understanding that no one in a secular sense would ever put up with if you're trying to teach in college levels. And yet we seem to do that over and over. Or the flip side is, and it leads to bad character. The one thing, somebody who truly is a Torah scholar, if you, let me see, how does it go? You walk the talk and you talk the walk. And then you have to have the fruit. They're humble. They're don't lord it over people. They understand. They fear and trembling and trepidation as you handle the word. So again, these are some of the ways. And like I said, just getting back into this word ornaments, who would have known that the way the rabbis are using the word ornaments is, and that makes sense because that also applies to in the script of the Hebrew when they get. Have you ever seen the really, I don't know what the word would be, there's a word for it, the flowery script, but they have all the little cantillation marks, the little points, the little crowns on everything. These are the ornaments, but the ornaments are 24 books of Torah that you have to master this stuff. All right. So that is one side of the coin that I wanted to put forward about how to get free from fundamentalism. And another one I found, which was really interesting, is in Isaac's name, which means laughter. All right. And I always kind of thought, well, that's not like a very deep name, to give somebody like a patriarch like Isaac the name laughter. I mean, laughter is good. We know what Mary Hart do is good. But I always felt there has to be something deeper here. There has to be something more to this. Okay. So lo and behold, I was reading, but it's important because it says that through Isaac, the seed of Israel will be called, because the story. Let me see who we're talking about. We're talking about Isaac had two sons, Jacob and Ishmael, right? And then he goes on to say that it's no, Abraham had two sons, Isaac and Ishmael. And then it goes on the present, but it's through there in person. But wait, what's that? Jackson, are you hearing another recording coming through? I think your weather is the same as
Let me see if we've got.
I don't know what's happening, if that's on my end or your end. Okay, I just got rid of it. All right, are we good? Okay. So why does he say that it's through the seed of Isaac that the righteous seed will be called? Well, this gets in again, that the name of laughter ties into this, and it ties into the concept of the feminine too. So one of the things I think that the Jews have a better understanding of, and they absolutely have a better historical precedent of practice in this area, is seeing themselves more as an organism, as a collective, united group of people. Especially in the West, we're very independent. We love our schisms. We love being able to have our 40,000 different denominations, and we don't really see ourselves. We really don't, I think, in my opinion, is as an organism that are connected as the body of Christ, the body of Yeshua that Paul tries to say. And if one part of the body hurts, it hurts the rest of the body. If someone in the body, if there's celebration, that it all works together, that you can't, it's better to think of it and function it as a collective whole than as a bunch of separate parts, each one doing their thing. And this has hurt us. But the Jews have, and this is one of their strengths, and this is why they've been able to live 2,000 years almost in exile, because they have such a crazy concept. And let me put it this way, it's truly hardwired into their collective consciousness, that it's not each man for himself, it's each man together. That's why the Jews hold together so well. And we need to have it because we are an organism more than we are separate little individuals. That's why a lot of the language, when they praise, they always pray in the plural. We thank you, Abba. And this would behoove us. This is why a lot of liturgy making it more in the plural, because we're in this together. This is a concept. And this is something that the feminine principle is very strong in collectiveness. And I just want to give a little story here as an aside. Somebody I was talking about this with Aria, okay? And Aria, some of you guys know, she's one of our beloved saints in the group, and she's helped out a lot. But she has a disability that keeps her from really functioning in her family life in a traditional way. Like her husband has had to really pick up a lot of the slack, raising the kids and doing a lot of household stuff. But what it has done is, and she was saying how and this is a phenomena that's happening today across the board. So there's always a good side to, there's a negative. So a lot of times as gender relationships are kind of getting blended more, and a lot of men do what have been called traditionally women's duties, and a lot of women move into what are traditionally men's roles, there is a blending going on. But in the good sense, it does have it can have, with you do Torah, in a good sense. So she says that her husband, he's come to this real understanding of how women's roles is so much different than men's roles, and how it's almost even really harder because you have to juggle. This is the point of multitasking. You have to juggle so many things at the same time. Most men traditionally, and if we train our brains differently, this change, are linear. You just start a job and you finish it, boom, and then you come home and you're off duty. But when you raise children and run a household, you have to be able to multitask. You have to be able to do 5, 10, 15 all at the same time. And he came to her one day and said, I don't know how you guys do it. It's so hard. I got to do all this stuff at the same time. You got to cook dinner and shop and do the homework, and you got to do all this stuff at the same time. It uses different parts of your brain, is what I'm trying to say. It's not good, it's not bad, but it sure helps to give an appreciation between the sexes of how. So I know a lot of men, even in my son's generation. I have a 30-year-old son, and one of his best friends just is now taking off a chunk of, he quit his regular job. He's staying home now to raise their daughter and to be the major homemaker, quote unquote, while she goes out, because he's going to use this season to redirect his life and to, he's actually a closet philosopher anyway. But what I'm trying to say is now it's becoming more acceptable for men to do this. And it's a very good thing because they get to use parts of their brain and they get to see what it's like for the other side. And as women go out into the marketplace, so I'm saying these blendings but then again, we know all the downside of it. I mean, just look at what's going on in America today with our Supreme, with the Congress and the Senate. I mean, it has so many downsides to it also, but I don't want to get into that. I was talking about Isaac and laughter. So I hope you didn't mind that rabbit trail. So what is really behind Isaac's name of laughter? Scientifically, they have found out that laughter, what it does, in the quote I have, laughter describes like a form of jogging for the innards. You ever have a total belly laugh and you're like, it's just like your whole body convulses. And it can be very healing, and it's very, when you're all done, you're almost exhausted sometimes because it uses a good deep belly laugh, and that all the mechanisms in our body that go into that really does use so many of our body parts. So anyways, they have found that humanity's incredible success in the world is not due to our intelligence per se, but it is rather to our ability to laugh at a level. Now, let me see if I can explain this. To tune into each other. Synchronicity, or mentally blending together at the reflex and subconscious or inward level, is what has made us as a species able to survive. It's like, what do they call that? Circling the wagons. All right. Many closely monitored and double-blinded experiments have shown that humans, particularly kin or family and romantic partners, have the ability to synchronize their heartbeat, their skin conductivity, think about that when you think about race, and even general mood. And we know that women living together oftentimes have their time of the month at the same time. That always seems to happen after a while. So what is going on here? It says that in the natural world, it says here, one naked ape isn't much of a foe, right? But 15 of them could be problematic. So unless, of course, it says unless, of course, these 15 don't want anything to do with each other. So in other words, laughter is akin to a concept of circling the wagons around a central cognitive event. So let's say we're all in the room and somebody does something funny, and we all have the same trigger response. We all respond with this incredible inward reaction of laughter, of getting into the inward, the belly. How did it say here? The levels, namely by examining. All right. Should they, however, demonstrate a very high level of synchronicity, namely by exclaiming their alarm cry in utter synchronicity, perhaps even in multiple voices and snazzy rhythms, evoke that any enemy with any sense at all will realize that the group is not simply 15 naked apes, but rather one super organism like a dragon with 15 heads and a transparent body. So this is the point. When you become an organism, a united whole, to your enemy, it's so much more overwhelming. People think, well, I can pick one off, I can pick them, but that's why the Jews, I'm saying this consciousness. So that's why through Isaac, the point is, would be said, this group mentality of we are saved by the Spirit. We have something in common with each other that is even on a higher level than our confession or a lot of the other things that draw us together. We literally are an organism. And I think Judah has that much higher than we do. We need to have it. And as the two houses come together, it is this synchronicity that is going to, in my opinion, we kind of tip the scales over the side of evil. That we will be so overwhelmingly united and strong and in synchronization and in a united front that evil no longer has a chance. And why this comes back to laughter, which comes back to the concept that this is a female, because Isaac is in the Sephirithic tree. Each patriarch is also coded as a Sephrith. He is on the left side, and this is a highly, because this is like men. This whole thing, men like to be very, the war mentality. I'll fight the fight. You don't need anybody else. It's a switch in mentality. Truly. More of a feminine side of dealing as a united front. I hope that all made sense. But that really helped satisfy to me why laughter and what is going on and why through Isaac. Because part of the covenant is you are coming into covenant with a unity, with an organism. We're part of something bigger than ourselves. We're part of the body of Yeshua. And mentally, when you wire your brain, that's why, one for all and all one, the unity in diversity that Jackson, the Yahad has this concept. That is really a very highly evolved synchronatic kind of concept. So I wanted to also put that out there. So, and I have one last point on this female. And then if anybody wants questions, and I know you got 10 minutes to lunch, so I can stop now, Jackson. I can't hear you. You must be muted.
Yeah, that would be all right. I'm an inquiring mind, though, and I would certainly like you to pick up from there. You want to pick up later today or at the next opportunity?
Well, just we had talked about, I think you had me scheduled for next Tuesday. Believe Tuesday. Yeah. I mean, you can. I don't think I could do later today, but if you want to, we could do a little question and answer now, but I could come back on maybe a little bit on Friday or something, but it would be hard.
Sure. I'll schedule it
in between my classes.
All right. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in the art world now.
Well, I'm just If you don't know, I'm a watercolor painter, and so I teach and I paint watercolors as a professional artist, and have am active in the gallery scene in my area and trying different things. I do have a well, let me just say, I do have a YouTube channel, so I would encourage people, if you want, to check out my YouTube channel that has a lot of teachings along this line, and I also have an art website. So either way, if you put my name in Google, Liz McGee, you're going to get both the YouTube and my art website. And
have you started doing portraits yet?
no, I don't do portraits. I
Um,
don't, that's just such a huge specialization. You almost got to really focus on that.
Okay.
It's very, so I really am kind of a landscape, impressionistic, seascape, landscape artist. So.
well, you certainly are binary.
Well, but if anyone has any questions, are there any quick questions out there, or do you?
I don't think so. Everybody looks satisfied.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you, Liz.
All right. And just let me know when you want to.
Okay. Catch you in a few days.
Okay. So I hope it's going well. Shalom to everybody.
Shalom.